Angus Simmons.
Honorable Mayor Craven and distinguished members of the council, good evening, and thank you very much for your careful and timely consideration of the LACE proposition. I think there's a lot to like in this. First of all, there's local control under the auspices of city and local county leaders, and JPA, which has public board hearings and meetings, annual setting of rates, and the transparency that brings. There's a higher percentage of renewable energy at comparable or slightly lower prices. And of course, there's 5% less for agricultural customers. And the economically beneficial customer benefits like net energy metering and feed-in tariffs and energy efficiency and local investment, those things are still not decided, and by joining now, Camarillo has a chance to play a role in making those decisions. The startup work and the initial finance has already been done, so the $10 million and the $50 to $70 million follow-on money is already available. And currently there are about 1.8 million residents in California that are benefiting from community choice energy. We talked about the opt-out provisions under AB 117. And when the first one was set up, which was Marin Clean Energy, the opt-out rate was about 80%. It's gone up. I mean, the ones that is 80% stayed with a community choice energy program. And the ones that have happened in the last year, as people have got to know about the program, it's been 90%. It's been higher. Neighbors like what they see. The Marin, which was set up first, now has Contra Costa joining its program. The next program was Sonoma, and now Mendocino has joined their program. We've noticed that a lot of our neighbors now, including Calabasas and Agoura and Santa Monica and Malibu, have joined in. And of course, in this county, I think it's now Ojai, Oxnard, Thousand Oaks, and I think that I've heard that Moore Park has just joined. So a lot of people are joining this. I think you can opt back to the investor-owned utility if you want. You get those 4 chances. You get a clear notification of what's happening. So I think those issues are well understood, and like I say, the percentage of people who are staying in CCE programs is higher now than when the first program happened. And thank you again for your consideration.
Thank you.
I got a question too.
Mrs. McDonald asked first.
Stick around.
I know you've done a lot of research on this, so if you can help me with some of my dilemma. How would you think through the problem of being able to generate the power, you know, because we don't have room here to build huge solar fields and so forth. So it's going to happen somewhere else to bring it into us.
Yeah, I mean,
how do you address that and being sure that we can make it happen? If Edison can't, how is this JPA going to do it?
Well, it's happening now. I mean, the grid exists. The grid exists all over California. So when energy is needed somewhere, it's purchased from an energy producer. That producer might be out in the desert. It might be wind in Kern County. It might be a biofuel project in Novato. But it's being purchased, or it could be from gas or.
I'm talking about new ones now. So I'm talking about new ones. I know how the grid works now and what exists. But let's say we reach the point California continues to grow, this county continues. You need more. And I believe the gentleman talked about the fact if we had to, the JPA would go out and begin to have to produce it themselves. How do we then get it?
Well,
do we have to get in the transmission business?
A lot of communities find that desirable because it stimulates investment and employment, right? So there could be rooftop solar, which would stimulate local solar installation. There could be Some places have put solar roofs on airport hangars. There are a lot of local things that could happen. Schools, Lancaster City, the schools and the parking lots and the public buildings all have solar roofs. And Lancaster, in fact, implemented some programs that says if you build a new house, you have to have at least 50% of the solar that you need installed on top of your roof. So
do that.
there are various things that you can do to stimulate locally. Now, there are obviously a lot of utility scale solar plants that are going in out in the desert, and those are connecting into the grid, and both investor-owned utilities and CCEs are purchasing those contracts from those kinds of locations, and wind and other energy sources.
So it would have to be Edison, in our case, that would go out and have to connect to these new fields.
Well, Edison
And then we'd-
maintains the grid. In fact, they maintain everything, up to delivery to the house, right?
Right.
They do the transmission, and they do the billing. I mean,
Right, I
so
understand
they
that.
keep those offices open. So there's just a line item for the community choice energy entity on your bill, which is still provided by Edison.
Okay, thank you.
I have one other question, Angus, before you go. I know you were here last week. I thought I said that Edison has to remain neutral on this. Is that right?
That is my understanding. They are not. They are neutral. My understanding is they're neutral, and their public position is that they are to be neutral. And I think that rises out of some of the history of what's happened in setting up the legal statutes. So there was AB 117 that started the process, and then there's SB 790.
Okay.
Mr. Morgan?
Actually, one of my colleagues is a lawyer, and
Okay, well, you're at the podium now, though.
You're at the podium. Stand there. You get tortured. I got a couple, three. Edison, when they need something fails or they need more power, they've got a thing. I don't know if anybody's been to it. The Edison plant up in the High Sierras. If you haven't, you ought to go, because if you need more electricity down in Los Angeles because something's failing, within 45 minutes they can have 15% more energy into Los Angeles or into this area. How would that be affected by what you're doing?
well,
It's
all
hydro.
of the day before market is regulated by the CAISO, the CAISO. So, whenever there's a need for a fast increase in production, there's a communication about ramping up production and putting it into the grid.
But I mean, using their facilities?
Using any facilities that are available to put extra energy into the grid from wherever it's
Survey the
available
market.
and needed.
Okay, got one more here. These are one of the questions I had to have answered because I don't want to get us into a situation where we have economic problem. That's why I said make sure people know that they can get out if they want to. It said there can be no absolute guarantee that the city would not face some economic liability. But it says that potential is much possible through the JPA structure and so on and so forth. But then when reading back here, it talked about we would be doing our fair share under a suit. Like if Los Angeles is counted as one of the members, we're counted as one of the members. That means we share as much stuff as the city of Los Angeles as responsible, being responsible in the suit. That kind of bothers me a little bit. We're little guys compared to them, yet we're going to take that share.
Well, he's
If something
not making
happened?
that proposal.
No, I'm saying that's what it says here.
Okay.
I'm not saying about proposal. I'm reading what it
You're
says.
talking about for investments that the JPA might make in a local energy producer, or are you talking?
No, I'm talking about if someone sued you,
Risk liability.
risk liability, they sued. And talking to the people here before, we would all be one vote and one responsibility unit each.
Right.
That's what I was
Okay,
told
well,
by
that
attorney.
wasn't something he talked about.
What? What did you say?
I said that really wasn't something he talked about. I don't know that
I'm talking about what's in the
Mr.
book.
Simmons has expertise in
Charlotte.
contract law, and that's what you're talking about, asking
Now,
about.
if there's a contract that has been taken for your entity and you subsequently withdraw, then
Still have some
if
risk.
they can't offload the contract at a price that's, equal or higher to the price that was paid, and they're taking a loss, I think at the point at which you were to withdraw, you might face some marginal cost for that difference. Now, if you left after the end of that contract was used, then there wouldn't be a liability. That's my understanding. Now, I'm not a lawyer, and I didn't read, I wouldn't want to
So-
be the one who was an expert on that.
Well, I kind of heard that. But if we had enough people decide they don't want to do it anymore, then we can run to the end of the contract, and that's it, right? No cost.
That would be my understanding.
Okay.
about that.
My last question is Finance and Executive Committee, if they didn't want to meet all this often, they could decide just to Finance and Executive Committee Finance and Executive Committee be the only ones who would meet rather than the full board. You
Well,
want me
he
to read it to
doesn't
you?
represent them, Mr. Morgan. He can't speak for them. He can't tell you about when the meetings will be.
I didn't say that.
It's unfortunately the
I didn't say when that'd be.
I thought you're asking
No,
him
I said
about-
that they could decide to have just the Finance and Executive Committee do the meetings. That's what it says right here.
Okay, but this man isn't representing them. He can't speak to
Oh, I
that.
thought he did.
No, he doesn't. He's a resident of Camarillo.
just knows a lot about it.
Oh, no, he's been with them a long time. I know him.
Do you, I know him. Do you work for them?
Connection whatsoever.
That's what I thought.
Okay, fine.
He doesn't represent
Well,
them
that,
at
anyway,
all.
that's a question I'll have. That's my last question. Was, the full board needs to have, be invited.
Okay, but we're restricting our questions to
fine, that's
Mr.
fine.
Simmons right
That's all.
now on things he talked about or things he might know about. Are there any other questions?